Happy New Year's Eve. It seems like Tesla's really trying to cram in as much news as they can before the clock strikes midnight.
It really does feel like a last-minute rush, doesn't it?
We've got a lot to cover today, from recalls in China to some really interesting Cybertruck updates. And of course, we have to talk about that new FSD release.
It's a lot to unpack for sure.
Well, that's what we're going to do in this deep dive today. We've got a Tesla update summary, some articles about these new Cybertruck features, and even some deep analysis of FSD V12.6 ready to dive in.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Okay, so first up, we have to talk about that recall in China. Tesla is recalling over 77,000 Model 3 and Model Ys.
Wow, that's a lot of cars.
Apparently, there's a software problem that's messing up the tire pressure display.
I see.
And not exactly the best news to end the year on, especially when you think about how huge the Chinese market is for Tesla.
Definitely a significant recall. It shows just how important China is to Tesla's overall strategy. Any problem, no matter how small it seems, is going to make headlines over there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But hey, it's not all bad news. There's also some positive stuff happening, like the trial production starting up at Tesla's Energy Storage Gigafactory in Shanghai.
Oh, yeah. That's a big deal.
Can you explain why that is for those of us who aren't, battery experts?
Well, as we shift to more renewable energy sources like solar and wind, we're going to need ways to store that energy for when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
Makes sense. I guess I never really thought about that.
Tesla's batteries are already being used in their cars, of course. But now they're taking that same technology and scaling it up to create solutions for homes, businesses, and even entire power grids.
Wow. So they're not just building cars. They're building the infrastructure for a whole new energy ecosystem. It's pretty ambitious.
It is. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Okay, so we've covered the highs and lows of Tesla's production. Let's shift gears and talk about their stock performance. They've had a bit of a roller coaster ride this year.
Haven't they all?
But it looks like they're ending on a high note.
Yeah, their stock is up 1% in pre-market trading, which is good news for investors.
What's the outlook for 2025? What are the experts saying?
Well, analysts at Barron's are predicting 25% growth for tech stocks next year, and they specifically mentioned Tesla as one to watch.
25%. That's a big jump, especially with all the uncertainty in the global economy.
It is, but there are a couple of reasons for this optimism.
Like what?
Well, for one thing, there's the change in the political landscape with the new Trump administration.
Oh, right.
Analysts believe there will be less regulatory pressure on tech companies, which could lead to more innovation and growth.
So a less restrictive environment might give Tesla more room to experiment and try new things.
Exactly. And another factor is the increasing investment in artificial intelligence.
AI, yeah, that's everywhere these days.
And Tesla is already ahead of the curve in this area. They stand to benefit greatly from the ongoing AI revolution.
Okay, so I've got a good grasp on the market outlook now. Now let's talk about something a little more fun. The Cybertruck.
Ah, yes, the Cybertruck, everyone's favorite futuristic tank.
Even though it hasn't officially launched yet, Tesla's already teasing some pretty cool new features.
They are. It's like they can't help themselves.
So spill the beans. What have they added?
Well, for starters, they've added a zoomable rearview camera.
A zoomable rear view camera. Why is that so special?
Well, because of the Cybertruck's unique angular design, a traditional rearview mirror wouldn't really work.
Ah, I see. So they had to get creative.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
they integrated a rearview camera that you can zoom in and out of right from the dashboard.
That's pretty cool. I bet that's super useful for off-roading when you need to see what's behind you.
Absolutely. It's all about visibility and control in those challenging off-road situations.
Okay, what else? What other tricks do they have up their sleeve?
They've also made it so you can open the Cybertruck's doors from the Tesla app.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean,
Okay.
especially if it's freezing cold outside and you don't want to mess around with door handles.
Right. Or if your passenger has no idea how to open those futuristic Cybertruck doors.
Yeah, good point. It's a good mix of practicality and just that cool Tesla factor.
For sure. They know how to appeal to their audience.
Okay, there's one more thing you have to tell me about the Cybertruck. Hit me with it.
You're ready. You ready for this?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Tesla has confirmed that an off-road light bar will be available for purchase in the Tesla store.
No way. I knew it. It just makes the Cybertruck look even more like a post-apocalyptic beast.
Exactly. They're really leaning into that whole Mad Max aesthetic.
I wonder what other crazy customization options they'll come up with.
Who knows? The possibilities are endless. It's a smart move by Tesla. They're tapping into the excitement and anticipation around the Cybertruck, giving people a glimpse of what's to come.
It's all about building that hype.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of hype, let's talk about something that's got a lot of Tesla owners excited. The release of FSD V12.6.
Yeah, everyone's waiting for this one.
Tesla really came through and delivered this update for those older HW3 vehicles just before the year's end.
It was a nice little holiday surprise.
Why is this such a big deal?
Well, for a couple of reasons. First, it shows that Tesla is committed to supporting their older vehicles, even as they roll out newer hardware.
That's good to hear. I always worry about companies abandoning older products.
Right. But Tesla seems to be taking a different approach. They're still investing in making the driving experience better for everyone, regardless of which hardware version they have.
That's pretty cool. So what exactly is new in FSD V12.6?
One of the big additions is what they're calling end-to-end on highways.
End-to-end, what does that mean?
It means that the car can handle pretty much all aspects of highway driving, from merging onto the on-ramp to exiting at your destination, with minimal input from the driver.
So it's basically like having an autopilot specifically designed for highway driving.
Pretty much. It's all about making highway driving smoother and more seamless.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I know there have been some issues with phantom braking, especially at green lights. Did they address that in this update?
Yes, they did. They specifically targeted that issue in V12.6.
Good, because that's never a fun experience.
No, it's not. So hopefully we'll see fewer of those jerky stops and starts.
What else is new? Anything else cool?
They've also added these really neat speed profiles. Chill, Standard, and Hurry.
Chill, Standard, and Hurry. What are those?
They basically allow drivers to customize how aggressively FSD drives.
Oh, so chill would be for people who prefer a more relaxed driving experience.
Exactly. Chill will keep the car in the slower lanes, minimize lane changes, and really prioritize a smooth and comfortable ride.
And then there's Standard, which is kind of like the middle ground.
Yeah, Standard is your average everyday driving mode. It keeps pace with traffic and makes lane changes when necessary.
And then Hurry is for those who want to, get somewhere fast.
Pretty much. It'll make more assertive lane changes and might even exceed the speed limit a little bit. Within reason, of course.
So you're saying I can actually tell my Tesla to chill out or hurry up.
That's right. You have more control over how you want the car to behave.
That's pretty cool. And kind of funny to think about.
It is. It's like having a little personality in your car.
So all of that is in V12.6. But you mentioned something about borrowing features from FSD V13.
Oh, yeah. In addition to all the new features, Tesla also incorporated some interesting details from the next generation of FSD.
So they're kind of giving us a sneak peek.
Exactly. One of the biggest changes is a redesigned controller for object tracking.
Hold on, a redesigned controller. Can you explain that one?
Think about it this way. For a car to drive itself safely, it needs to be able to understand everything that's happening around it.
Right.
The car's sensors and cameras are constantly scanning the environment, identifying and tracking other cars, pedestrians, cyclists, obstacles, you name it.
It's like the car has eyes everywhere.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And this new controller helps the car see even better, making more accurate predictions about what those objects are going to do.
So it's about improving the car's perception and decision-making on the road.
Precisely. It's a subtle change, but it can have a big impact on the safety and performance of FSD.
What else have they borrowed from V13?
Oh, they've also replaced auto steer with something called max speed offset.
Max speed offset. What is that?
It's basically like setting a tolerance for how much faster than the speed limit you're comfortable going.
So instead of setting a specific speed, I can tell the car to go, 10% faster than the speed limit.
Exactly. You got it. Tesla recommends a 40% offset, but it's really up to the driver to decide what they're comfortable with.
So it's a balance between efficiency and maybe getting to your destination a little quicker.
Yeah, you could say that. It's all about giving drivers more control.
Okay, I'm sold. When can I get my hands on this V12.6 update?
Well, the rollout has already started. Model S and Model X are getting it first.
Oh, nice. What about us, poor Model 3 and Model Y owners?
You'll have to wait just a little bit longer. Probably another week or two.
Ugh, the suspense. But at least it's something to look forward to in the new year.
Absolutely. Something to keep us on the edge of our seats.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. Maybe it's time to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and continue our deep dive into all things Tesla.
Sounds good to me.
We'll be right back.
After a short break.
Don't go anywhere.
We've got a lot more to talk about. It's amazing how much Tesla manages to squeeze into a year.
Right. It's like they're constantly in motion.
New factories, software updates, those Cybertruck teasers.
Speaking of those Cybertruck updates, I was really impressed with what they put into this FSD V12.6 release.
Yeah, it's a pretty substantial update.
It's not just like a little tweak here and there.
Yeah.
They really went all out to improve the whole driving experience,
It seems like they're really focused on refining FSD.
especially for those of us who are still using the HW3 system.
Right. They're not just forgetting about those older vehicles.
So it's not just about the latest hardware. They're actually going back and making the older systems better.
Exactly. They're taking those lessons they've learned from the newer HW4 systems and applying them to HW3.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like that they're not just abandoning those of us who haven't upgraded yet.
It shows a commitment to making the FSD experience better for everyone, regardless of which hardware they have.
I wonder, though, with all this progress on FSD, are we getting any closer to actually having self-driving cars?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
I mean, is that even a realistic goal at this point?
The technology is definitely moving fast, but there are still some major challenges to overcome.
Like what? What are the biggest hurdles?
I think one of the toughest challenges is perception.
Perception.
Yeah, FSD relies on all those cameras and sensors to understand what's happening around it.
Right.
But the real world is really unpredictable.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You've got weather conditions, unexpected obstacles, other drivers who might not be paying attention, pedestrians, cyclists, all kinds of things happening at once.
It's a lot for a computer to process.
It really is. It's a huge computational challenge to make sense of all that data in real time.
And I imagine there's some ethical considerations, too.
Absolutely. When you start talking about self-driving cars, you have to think about who's responsible when something goes wrong.
Right. If there's an accident, whose fault is it?
And how do you program a car to make those split-second decisions in really difficult situations? Potentially life or death situations.
Those are tough questions.
They're questions that we as a society need to figure out.
There's a lot of debate about self-driving cars.
Yeah, some people think they're just around the corner. Others are much more skeptical.
Where do you stand on all of this?
I think it's important to be both excited and realistic about the potential of self-driving cars.
So somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, we should acknowledge the incredible progress that companies like Tesla are making.
Yeah, they're definitely pushing the boundaries.
But we also have to be honest about the complexity of the challenge.
Right, it's not going to happen overnight.
Exactly. It's going to take time and a lot of careful consideration.
So where does all of this leave Tesla? I mean, they're ramping up production, expanding into new markets, constantly innovating with their software. What's the big picture here?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a company that's evolving.
Evolving in what way?
They're becoming more than just an electric car manufacturer. They're transitioning into a full-fledged technology company.
Interesting. So it's not just about the cars anymore.
Not at all. They're involved in energy storage, artificial intelligence, robotics, all sorts of cutting-edge fields.
And the Cybertruck is a good example of that.
It really is. It's a statement about their technological capabilities.
It's like a vehicle from the future.
That's exactly the image they're trying to project.
It's not just about selling cars. It's about selling a vision of the future.
A future that's sustainable, technologically advanced, and hopefully better than the present.
That's a pretty powerful message.
It is. And it seems to be resonating with a lot of people.
But it's not all going to be easy. Right? There must be some challenges along the way.
Of course there will be. Every company faces challenges.
Like what? What are some of the biggest obstacles they're facing?
Well, competition for one thing. The other automakers are starting to take electric vehicles seriously.
Right, they're finally catching up.
And there are always going to be regulatory hurdles to overcome.
Like we saw with that recall in China.
Exactly. There's always something.
But Tesla seems to thrive on challenges. They've always been a disruptor.
That's true. They're not afraid to shake things up.
And that's what makes them so interesting to follow.
Absolutely. They're a company that's constantly changing, adapting to new situations, pushing the envelope.
You know, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
We've gone from talking about tire pressure sensors to the future of transportation. It's pretty amazing.
It is. It shows how much Tesla is involved in.
So many different things.
Exactly. They're not just a one-trick pony.
It's clear that they're operating on multiple levels, tackling some really complex issues.
They're not afraid to take on big challenges.
And that's what makes them so fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. Whether you love them or hate them, you have to admit that they're making things interesting.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind of information.
It has. We've covered a lot of ground.
But I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
There's always more to learn about Tesla.
They're always up to something.
Always innovating, always pushing the boundaries.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the key takeaway for our listeners? What should they be paying attention to in the coming year?
Well, I would say keep an eye on the rollout of FSD V12.6.
Right. especially for those of us with the HW3 system,
It'll be interesting to see how it performs in the real world.
and how it handles those complex situations we talked about.
Exactly. Whether it can live up to the hype.
And of course, we can't forget about the Cybertruck launch.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be huge.
I can't wait to see it on the road.
It's going to be a sight to behold.
Beyond those specific events, though, I think it's important to keep an eye on the bigger picture.
Right. What's Tesla's overall strategy?
How are they positioning themselves within the tech world?
Are they truly becoming a technology company rather than just a car company?
And how will that affect their competition?
Not just with other car manufacturers, but with companies like Google and Apple.
Who are also getting into the autonomous vehicle game.
Exactly. It's a whole new landscape.
These are questions that we'll continue to explore in the coming months and years.
It's going to be an exciting ride, that's for sure.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Let's do it.
We've got even more to discuss. You know, it's pretty amazing to see just how much Tesla has been able to achieve.
They've really made a mark, haven't they?
I mean, even with all the challenges and setbacks, they're still pushing forward.
They're definitely not afraid to take risks.
And they're always coming up with these groundbreaking ideas.
Like the energy storage gigafactory in Shanghai.
Right. That was a big move.
Yeah.
It shows that they're serious about moving beyond just cars.
It's a sign of things to come.
And it's going to have a huge impact on the global energy market.
Absolutely. As renewable energy sources become more widespread, we're going to need better ways to store that energy.
And Tesla is right there, ready to meet that demand.
With their expertise in battery technology, they're in a prime position to become a leader in that space.
It's like they're building the infrastructure for a whole new energy ecosystem.
They're not just following the trends, they're creating them.
Okay, so we've talked about Tesla's impact on the energy market, but let's bring it back to the cars for a minute.
Sounds good.
What are your thoughts on the future of FSD? Do you think it really has the potential to revolutionize transportation?
I think it definitely has the potential, but there are still some big questions that need to be answered.
Like the ethical considerations we talked about earlier.
Right, exactly. As FSD technology gets better, we need to have some serious conversations about responsibility and liability.
If a self-driving car makes a mistake, who's to blame?
And how do we program these systems to make the right decisions in those tricky situations?
It's not just about the technology itself.
It's about how we use it and how it fits into our society.
And those conversations need to involve everyone, not just the tech experts.
We need input from policymakers, ethicists, the general public, everyone who will be affected by this technology.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement about the new features and the cool designs.
Yeah, the tech world is really good at generating hype.
But it's important to remember that there are always going to be challenges and complexities.
Especially with something as groundbreaking as self-driving cars.
And Tesla, as a company that's really pushing the limits, is going to be under a lot of scrutiny.
They're going to make mistakes along the way. It's inevitable.
So what's your advice for our listeners? How should they approach all of this?
I would say be curious, be critical, and be engaged.
Don't just take everything you hear at face value.
Exactly. Do your own research, ask questions, challenge assumptions.
It's about becoming an informed consumer of technology.
And remember, this is just the beginning. We're still in the early stages of this technological revolution.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it all unfolds.
Absolutely. The next few years are going to be wild.
Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive.
Time flies when you're talking about Tesla.
It's been a pleasure, as always, exploring all these ideas with you.
Likewise. It's always a great conversation.
And I want to thank our listeners for joining us on this journey.
We appreciate you tuning in.
Before we sign off, I'd like to leave everyone with one final thought.
Okay, hit us with it.
With everything we've discussed today, the expansion into energy storage, the advancements in FSD, the futuristic design of the Cybertruck,
Yeah.
do you think Tesla is ultimately going to be remembered as a car company or as a technology company?
That's a tough one. I think only time will tell.
But it's definitely something to think about.
As Tesla continues to evolve and change the world,
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Share your opinions with us on social media.
we're always interested in what our listeners have to say.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
And keep diving deep.